With me now are the former communications chief for the Labour government, Alastair Campbell, and the columnist for The Guardian and former editor of the Times, Simon Jenkins. Welcome to you both. Alastair Campbell, do you have any sympathy for Andy Coulson this morning?
I do. I mean, when I was in Downing Street and he was an editor, I always had very good relations with Andy Coulson. But obviously, something terribly wrong has been done. Obviously, these are allegations against him now, and I think particularly now he's been arrested, we shouldn't say too much about that. But obviously, as a human being, I feel very, very sorry for him. But I have to say, I think that this whole issue has been a lesson in crisis mismanagement from the very, very start. I did an interview with you, I checked this in my diaries today, 2 years ago, I think to the day, when I was up north and you were down here. And I made the point that until News of the World and News International get right to the bottom of this, until the police come clean about their failures in the first investigation, it's just not going to go away. And at every stage of the process, they've done and said things which have turned out to be partial truths or innuendo or untruths and obfuscation, and they now end up in a situation where they're shutting down a newspaper, journalists who've done nothing wrong are being thrown out on the dole, and the people who are responsible for the mismanagement are still there, and meanwhile David Cameron is about to hand over B-Sky-B to them. It's a pretty extraordinary story.
Do you think that yesterday the statement, I mean the dramatic decision to shut down the News of the World and the concessions made by James Murdoch about what went on, that Parliament had been misled, that he didn't know, that there had been improper contacts with the police, do you think that was the beginning of recovery?
It's the beginning of a belated recovery. I mean, the fact of the matter is they knew this material months ago and they gave it to the police. The police are now presumably leaking it and other people are leaking it. But the fact of the matter is he knew this stuff. And it's only when it became really painful on the B-Sky-B front that he made this quite extraordinary climb down. I mean, it was quite an impressive statement, but it's just far too belated.
But it also, to a certain extent, makes him, James Murdoch, liable, because he's admitted on the record things that he's done, which people...
And his own staff are liable. I mean, I have a problem with it. I mean, you're beginning with, I have to say, an important story of journalistic ethics, but not many people have died. I mean, the BBC, my own newspaper, the rest of the newspapers have gone completely berserk this week. You'd have thought there was a tsunami hit Britain. 4,000 people had their names on a list. They weren't hacked into, they had names on a list.
Somewhere.
It's a serious matter, and I'm not going to belittle it at all. But you've got to realise the fact that, I mean, here we are at Sky. I mean, the BBC are gunning for Sky. Most of the press are gunning for the media. I mean, this is a huge industrial story on top of everything else. It is very serious, but I can actually understand, all I'm saying, why these people didn't get on the ball quick enough. And I'm afraid they're only getting on the ball quick enough because their money's at stake.
Yeah, going to say, I partially agree with that, but I think that the tipping point that took this into mass public consciousness was the Millie Dowler revelation. What was a story that was of interest to people like us, and, you know, me getting my phone out, John Prescott, Sienna Miller, all the sort of people that were on the list, the public didn't care that much. Millie Dowler, Soho murder victors, Kate McCann, all that. No. It's just the public are revolted. So that's why the police have suddenly had to start getting their act together. News International have started to look like they're taking it seriously. And David Cameron finally has come up with some of the measures he should have announced ages ago.
What the Prime Minister was saying today, and actually pretty much echoing some of the things that Ed Miliband was saying, is that this did matter because there is an important balance of powers, that the fourth estate, the media is one of them, and that the police are involved, that effectively the police have been corrupted, that politicians have been too soft in terms of regulating what is now criminal behaviour, and that this is a massive wake-up call to everybody. That's the phrase he used.
The problem we've got, I mean, I totally agree with what Alastair said about
it. That matters.
That's when it went viral. But, I mean, is there no sense of proportion in these things? Is there absolutely none? I mean, the BBC have spent a week, I think 60%, 70% of the Today programme has been on nothing else. It's led the news every day. It is a serious story.
So Sky.
Yeah, we've done a lot of it.
Good. Well, good for you. But I mean, it's become a hysteria.
The
Great British public. I mean, I'm not decrying what's happened. I'm just saying I think certainly we've got two public inquiries.
The reason it's so important is because it is that the moment has finally arrived where things that a lot of us have been talking about for a long time about the need to change the settlement between politics, media and the public, finally it can happen. That's why it's important, I think.
I mean, you're now seeing self-regulation, of the media. The media regulating itself. I mean, it's savage. Whether you now need to move to two public inquiries, statutory statutes...
Well, you've also got a lot of trials and police action and courts.
Goodness
as
knows
well.
what's coming up. Something very suspicious has been happening in the police, which I hope will come out. But I'm trying to get a sort of balance into it. And it's very difficult at the moment. We all know when these feeding frenzies are running us.
Always happens.
No, but I mean, we did have, the BBC were at the centre of the Hutton inquiry. Now, I don't want to talk about that now, but in a sense one can understand...
Well, actually, I'd quite like to because of what David Cameron said about that. Because I thought the way today... I thought he did perfectly well in his opening remarks. I thought once you guys started to question him, when he tried to sort through me and the dodgy dossier in with Andy Coulson, I thought was very, very silly. And I also think that this idea that he and Tony Blair, as it were the same. Just remember, Tony Blair's the one who got vilified in the press for making a speech about the feral beast. And I think... I've certainly been arguing. I argued with Tony, and John Prescott was arguing. We're all arguing. The press, we do need to do something about it.
Yeah, but he's accepting that today. That's the point. That's
Finally,
what he was.
What he didn't do today.
And the truth is, I would say, Simon Jenkins, you're almost impartial in this.
Well,
I mean, I would say,
I'm a journalist.
If we want to be specific about this, I would say that New Labour's closeness to the Murdoch Empire, if you want to call it, was probably more even than David Cameron's.
You married one of them.
I remember it well. I mean, I was on the Calcutta Committee, and we went through all this bloody stuff back in the 90s about how you can control the press in matters like this. And that was the height of the frenzy over Diana Gate and
Last Chance
Squidgy Saloon. Last Chance Saloon, David Mellor and so on. I mean, it was as bad. It really was as bad. I mean, Hutton inquiry is about someone who died. I mean, that was serious. It was a war. I mean, that was justified inquiry.
Millie Dowler, it was a police investigation into a missing girl who turned out to be murdered.
There was an explanation.
I mean, that is someone who died.
Simon, I think you should welcome the fact that you've now got this opportunity to change the relations between politics and the media, and most importantly, the way the public get into the debate. I agree with you that when there's a frenzy, this is what happens. But I think that actually out of this, there will be a new settlement. And also, Adam, I wrote in my blog today about at Rebecca Brooks' wedding, which I was at. I had a conversation with David Cameron when he was still in the leader of the opposition, and I can remember saying to him, look, when you get into power, if you get into power, I obviously don't want you to, but I thought that he would, and you really, I think, that if you can get into power without the press around your neck, you'll be able to do a lot better job, and I would be willing to help you put together some sort of new settlement. Now, bizarrely, at that point, Rupert Murdoch walked over and we sort of changed the subject. And for a while, I thought David Cameron was going to pursue that strategy. And I think when he first got into power, he did seem to pursue that strategy, but I'm afraid he's gone right back now.
Okay, nothing will change.
Nothing
will change.
And what about what is, in business terms, a transformative idea of the merger with BSkyB? Is that going to happen?
I think it will. It's about money. Not about influence, it's about money. He desperately needs it to happen, that's why he's done what he's done. Nothing in the relationship between politics and the press will change. I mean, maybe it should.
I think it will.
But I'm just predicting.
But these submissions to Ofcom, do you think that Jeremy Hunt, when it comes to September, should say...
He made a big mistake.
He
should have gone to Competition Commission on that. That was a big mistake.
He could still.
He could still, and I think if I was him, I'd do it. I mean, that's a procedural point.
But having set out the reasons why he shouldn't, he then probably will get judicial review. I don't know why they're so worried about judicial review. I think he's got to make the right decision now, which includes the mood that has developed around News International. It is a legitimate factor.
One can say against it, OK, the News of the World seem now as be bad, as paid the ultimate price, as it were. Sky, there's been big investment, as we all know, by News Corp over the years. It seems to be quite widely admired. I mean, why shouldn't he be allowed to consolidate his business?
I've got no problem with this. I was on the Competition Commission press panel. I mean, we had a rule of 30%, and the 30% rule is more or less adhered to. I don't think the conduct of Sky has been all that bad, if I may say so to you. I don't see why he shouldn't increase his holding in it. I don't think it's going to make much difference to his influence in British politics. But I do think you have to stop at 30%, and he's sailing very close to the wind.
And Rebecca Wade?
I think she should have gone.
Is she going to go?
I find it extraordinary that she hasn't. I think there's probably only 3 people on the planet who think she can survive this. Rupert, James and herself.
Thank you all very much indeed.